This completely changes how we view the Toronto Raptors going into next season. As we all know, the Toronto Raptors completely overhauled their roster a year and a half ago and facilitated a rebuild. But some major developments that have happened over the past couple of weeks that some Raptors fans have been overlooking, and some things that we have not even seen out there on the basketball court just yet for this Raptors squad, beyond any big moves that could happen this offseason, beyond any draft steals we could see go down, heading into this year's NBA draft. There are a couple developments that really just change how we should be viewing this team going into next year. So we're going to break down what those changes are, why things are really looking up for this Toronto Raptors team more than even the most optimistic fans really thought, and frankly, why I am very, very amped up for this offseason and more importantly going into next year. So much to break down out here in this video. But folks, as we've discussed, as we brought up, over 52% of our viewers haven't hit the subscribe button just yet. Getting some new viewers back. People are starting to get interested in the Toronto Raptors again. So if you're tuning into Raptors Digest, you're enjoying the daily Toronto Raptors news coverage, make sure you guys hit that sub button down below, because I know over half of you haven't. So appreciate every single one of you that's tuned to the videos, comment, to do everything along those lines. But make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton here at Raptors Digest. But let's dive into it, because folks, we know the Toronto Raptors have made some moves dating back to the trade deadline, dating back to everything that's going on. This roster is looking very, very fresh, and Masai has essentially broken down the plan for this team, with the bringing in Brandon Ingram and the move. So now at the end of the day, we have to find talent on this team. We have to look at maybe expediting us. They are talking about Brandon Ingram trade, young players still in this league, very talented, and it fits. We hope it fits. He hasn't played yet, but we hope he fits kind of the mode and how we play and what we need on this team. We feel at the end of the day, you have to acquire talent. And we have to do it in a unique way. In the market that we're in, we have to jump on opportunities that come our way. Sometimes we really study them. We felt this was a unique opportunity for us, and it fits, but it doesn't stop our rebuild. And it didn't mess it so we continue down this path. So the Toronto Raptors are continuing to facilitate the rebuild. But their whole mission, their whole goal, Masai Ujiri has stated it, it's to gather talent. It's to build up this stockpile, build up talented players out here on this roster. And I think one thing, because again, there's going to be a lot of big names, there's going to be a lot of people linked to this Raptors team over the course of the offseason. Of course, Giannis keeps getting thrown out there. I'm sure Sabonis, DeRozan, all these players that are going to be out there on the market are going to be brought up, and we'll break down the developments and whether or not those trades can actually go down. RJ Barrett's been linked in a bunch of trade rumors, but Masai Ujiri's mission is to make this team better, to bring in talent. Some people are saying, we rushed the rebuild and making that Brandon Ingram trade. I think most people hearing Brandon Ingram talk, hearing how well he's fit in with this organization, have switched sides, been like it. The naysayers on that trade are, okay, I'm feeling good about this one here right now. But he's coming to the mix, and we are adding a piece that, in terms of his stats, in terms of what he's able to do, right? Brandon Ingram's averaging 22 points per game, 5.6 rebounds, 5.2 assists on definitely a efficient shooting, 47% from the field, 37% from the three-point line. It'd be nice if he knocked down more corner threes, but Brandon Ingram is a guy that can get buckets. He can do a lot out there on the basketball court, and we are integrating him into this team. That is a massive piece we are adding to this squad. We also get to add, a piece in terms of the NBA draft. As we have the 9th pick. We're not sure who it's going to be. I'm going to be covering a lot of the different assets, pieces, and players that are in the mix for this Toronto Raptors squad. But there will be a talented guy, a top 10 pick in what's supposed to be a loaded draft. They're adding talent to this group that the Toronto Raptors roster is already loaded with guys like Immanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, Scottie Barnes, Gradey Dick, who I think has been overlooked because he was dealing with some injuries at the end of this past year. But he was averaging 14.4 points per game, 3.6 rebounds, 1.8 assists, shooting 35% from the three-point line, and had a nuclear start. Like, he was very, very hot to start off the season. So another summer of development for Gradey Dick. Don't be shocked if he takes that leap. Another massive step up going into next year. So we have a lot of guys, a lot of players on this roster. And some people have been optimistic. Some people are like, this is a team that we look at the standings, right? They were the 11th seed. Yes, you add Brandon Ingram, you add a draft pick, you get some development, but we're just going to be a mid-level team. We're going to be in the play-in and stuff. And frankly, I disagreed with that even before these recent developments, before these recent changes that have happened over the past couple of weeks. But now, more than ever, there has been some developments that frankly should be looked at by Toronto Raptors fans that gets us excited about the squad. Because again, we also have the development of Scottie Barnes, who does needs to be brought up. 19 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 5.8 assists. Scottie Barnes has improved every single offseason. I think this is the year where we really judge, hey, is he going to take that superstar level leap, or is he going to be, that guy's a fringe all-star every single year? That's kind of the question marks regarding Scottie Barnes. I don't think there's any question about him being able to be, really, really phenomenal basketball player in this league, but is he going to jump into the star level position, or more of a guy that is, or the superstar level, or more of a guy that's Andre Iguodala, right? Who's definitely a star in his role, but is more of like a third option, fourth option on a championship level team. So that's the questions that we have regarding Scottie Barnes going into next year, but we see his development. I'm more bullish on the star ladder rather than like the absolutely phenomenal elite, like glorified role player at that point. But I digress on the Scottie Barnes points. The recent developments that we have to look at are the Eastern Conference is getting completely depleted. It is getting completely cooked here now at this point. The Cleveland Cavaliers were just knocked out in the second round, and frankly, that is a team that, yes, Donovan Mitchell's saying they're going to run it back. Yes, they dealt with some injuries and stuff. They were 64-18 this season, but you don't have a couple of really, really bad flameouts out there multiple seasons in a row and then come back and like things are just smooth and happy-go-lucky. That is a team that's in a dire spot. And you hate to see it that, the Boston Celtics, as much as I hate the Boston Celtics, I've been open. They're one of my least favorite franchises, least favorite teams out there in the NBA. Same division as the Raptors and stuff. Openly dislike the Boston Celtics. You hate to see any injuries happen. It sucks that Jason Tatum ended up tearing his Achilles, but I'm sure he'll bounce back, a couple years from now. But they are in a brutal tax situation. We've covered this on a video before the Tatum injury. They're going to have to trade one of Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, one of these types of guys, just to make the money work, even with Tatum there. Tatum just tore his Achilles. He's not going to be playing next season. Maybe in the playoffs and some miraculous recovery and stuff, but not that you wish injuries on anything people, but the Celtics are not going to be there next season. They're not going to be a team as dominant as Ted's by just being led by Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and then like an old Al Horford. That's just not going to be a team that I'm that afraid of out there in the Eastern Conference. So that's a squad that is what it is. The Knicks, of course, are good. They have a lot of money on their payroll, too. I don't think they're going to have shed salary, but it is something that you look at. The Pacers, again, the Knicks and Pacers are good teams, don't get me wrong, but they're not teams that I look at and say, that is not someone the Raptors have any chance of competing with. That's not what I look at when I see the New York Knicks, when I see the Indiana Pacers. And we know specifically, and the Raptors have dealt with this in the past. It's one of the reasons they didn't want to pay OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby has struggled to stay healthy. Karl-Anthony Towns have struggled to stay healthy. So those are all things you have to factor in when you're looking at the landscape of the conference. The Bucks, not only do the Bucks, or if Giannis stays, they're just an absolute dumpster fire in terms of roster construction. That's why Giannis is projected to get traded. Giannis is projected to get traded to the Western Conference. If he's not coming, because the Raptors are a team that's been mentioned a bit, the Miami Heat have been a team that's mentioned a bit, the Brooklyn Nets are a team that's mentioned a bit. I don't think the Heat have any assets whatsoever in terms of being able to facilitate a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. The Nets, if they acquire him, yes, they have a bunch of first-round picks, but what are you going to run him around? Nick Claxton? Am I worried about a Giannis, Nick Claxton-led team? Probably not. Probably not that much. Cam Thomas out there in the mix. It's not that scary than the Bucks were this season. I mean, that's not that type of team that I'm really just over the moon horrified about. So, the Bucks, I think they're going to fall off regardless next season. If they trade him to a team in the Eastern Conference, I don't think anyone's going to take that major leap. Likely, if he gets dealt, it's going to the Western Conference. Like the Raptors are in the mix with all these teams. So that's something that's out there that direction. I mean, the Pistons have improved, but again, they're solid. They're good. They're fine. They'll be a mid-level team in the East next season. And then the rest of the conference is just not that great. I know the Magic dealt with some injuries, but, the only real guy they had out of the lineup, at the end of the season was Jalen Suggs. And is Jalen Suggs going to take you from a 41-41 team to a 60-win team to a 55-win team that we should be horrified about? I don't know. They'll have some development. Paolo's great and stuff, but the Miami Heat, they are in a desperate spot now at this point. With Jimmy Butler being gone, they were bad after that Jimmy Butler trade. The Atlanta Hawks have been stuck in mediocrity. The Chicago Bulls have been stuck in mediocrity. The Toronto Raptors, have a lot of young pieces that take that leap. Brandon Ingram coming in, Scottie Barnes, all these guys that are coming out there in the mix. The Eastern Conference is wide open now. Behind us, you can look at the Sixers as a team that, they get Embiid healthy, but I'm not sure how healthy Embiid and Paul George can really be going out there into the future. Like, again, you do have Maxey, you have McCain, you have Ace Bailey probably coming into that mix. They might trade that third overall pick, but I don't know. The Sixers are in a weird spot with all the money they have tied into two old guys, and Paul George and Joel Embiid. The Nets, if they get Giannis, then maybe, but short term, not that afraid. There are very few teams. Like, there are no teams in the Eastern Conference right now that I'm looking at, like anyone on the West, like the Thunder, like the Denver Nuggets, like the Minnesota Timberwolves, like the teams that are left out there in the Western Conference here now at this point. There are no teams really of that caliber, with maybe exception of the Knicks or the Pacers, that I'm just really shivering in my boots going into next season. And I think there's a realistic chance. Like, I've made some delusional takes. I've made some opinions. I've made some stuff before. I think there's a really strong possibility. Again, we have to see how the offseason shakes out. The Raptors are going to be a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference next season. I don't think that's absolutely absurd. I don't think that's an insane take, just looking at how bad this conference is going to be next year. It's wide open and, frankly, completely changes how we view this team going into next year. So let me know what you guys think about this. We get close to the offseason, we get our pieces, we see what we have. I feel like this is another year. Top 4 seed back for the Toronto Raptors is definitely back on the table. But let me know what you guys think about all that in the comment section down below. You guys are the best thing as far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out.